Are you serious, guys? Are you serious? We're getting information now, just breaking, coming out of Europe, really, as Ukraine is really starting to brace for the realization that they're going to lose this war to Russia. And as the United States and some of the other allies have realized they probably can't keep sending money, we're seeing some breaking information, and we're hearing, and really it's what I've been thinking, who's next. Let's talk about that. But first, let me put a shout out right now for thehealthyfat.com/Paul, thehealthyfat.com/Paul. It turns out the key to losing weight and keeping it off is not in carbs or fat or even in probiotic rich foods. No, the end game of having a healthy weight as well as more energy and a long, healthy life comes down to specific switch. You can flip it in your body to flush out the unnecessary calories. And that's because Dr. Stephen Gundry is calling this the caloric bypass, the caloric bypass. That's right. And by activating this specific process in your body, he has seen thousands, that's right, thousands of people dramatically improve their health, even at age 50 and beyond. This includes weight loss, getting tons of more energy, returning to the good health they had in their youth once they simply addressed this one key to better health. Not only that, this is actually associated with improved digestion, strong feeling joints and muscles, smoother skin, and healthier lives, meaning it could be the key to a happy life. What does this all mean? Hang on a second. Whoa. Dr. Stephen Gundry has lost 70 pounds himself using this research and has kept the weight off for over 20 years and counting. His digestive issues are gone. His health is fantastic. He feels younger and healthier today than he did back in his 40s. And his video, that if you click on that link below this description, right in the description of this video, if you click on it, over 20 million people have, and they've watched it and they realize the easy way to learn about thehealthyfat.com/Paul. That's thehealthyfat.com/Paul. Hit the video at the bottom of the video. Okay, guys. Here's the story coming out of Russia, and it's really coming out of Ukraine. As Ukraine is starting to brace for the realization that they're losing this war. Russia's largest steel company, Ukraine's largest steel company has, and they're the ones that's building weapons and making all the, artillery and a lot of the stuff they make, a lot of the armored vehicles. They realize what's happening. Your manufacturers know. Putin will trigger a third world war, according to the largest private employer of people in Ukraine, if the West allows Putin to win. According to the chief executive of Medivest, he says that a Russian victory would be devastating to the world and to humanity, according to the report. In a television interview, he said, "I don't believe that if Ukraine fails, that Putin will stop. The Baltic states, Poland, Romania, Hungary, Slovakia, they're all the next targets. And I think then it's definitely a third world war. It's not going to stop. And actually, the whole thing that we've been seeing over maybe the last 10 years is a test for the international rules that were deployed after the 1945 World War II. It comes as the United States believes that Russia is developing a space-based anti-satellite nuclear weapon whose detonation could disrupt everything from military communications to phone-based ride services, a source familiar with the matter. Now, the anonymous source said it was his understanding the system would involve a nuclear explosive device placed into orbit with the capability of creating an EMP and to destroy other satellites that are in orbit. We have always been categorically against and now against the deployment of nuclear weapons in space. But Putin said that his defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, said in a meeting that was televised at the Kremlin. So what we have here now is, and this has been the discussion going on is that Putin is winning. Russia is winning. They just captured another city. They are taking more ground all the time. This morning, I have another separate report that says hundreds and hundreds of Ukraine soldiers have just been captured and have become POWs. And as I have said so many times, that if Putin is able to keep Crimea, which he will, he's had Crimea now 10 years. 10 years. It was this time in the spring of 2014. I reported it when he invaded or went into Ukraine and basically held a gun to their head and told them they needed to vote. Do they want to remain with Ukraine or go with Russia? And they voted to go with Russia. But 90% of them, the people living in Crimea, speak Russian language. So that was pretty easy. But then when it came to when he invaded the same year, East Ukraine, he said he wasn't invading. If you remember, he said, that's not me. That's not me. Those are Russian rebels that are fighting the Ukrainian army. And he said that for about 4 years, and he never changed. But then finally, 2 years ago, when he went into eastern Ukraine, 2 years ago this month, it was then evident that he was making a move to take the entire Ukraine. Now, I've talked to Mike from around the world many times about this in some of the interviews, and Mike said he'll never leave. Once he got his foot in Ukraine, he's never going to leave until he takes that entire nation. He believes it belongs to Russia. But also, folks, I know that Belarus, he's pretty well got in his back pocket anytime he wants it. But he's using Belarus as a staging ground. That's how he launched the attack toward Kiev and Ukraine. He can also use Belarus as a staging ground to make his next move once this Ukraine situation is finalized and Russia keeps eastern Ukraine and Crimea all becomes part of Russia, then he can turn his energy toward the Baltic states. And just as I read a minute ago, the Baltic states and Poland, Romania, Hungary, Slovakia, they all don't trust Russia. They don't trust Vladimir Putin, really. And they are bracing themselves already, preparing themselves for being next on his list to make an invasion. And he could take, for instance, the Baltic states, which is Estonia, Latvia, those 3 Baltic states. Those were all under Russian control at one time. He could take those pretty easy. They don't really have hardly much of a defense over there. NATO does have some troops in that area, but it won't be enough. And also, so we're looking now at Putin's next move. And you might say, well, he's not going to make another move. It's been a long war with Ukraine. He needs to regroup. What you don't understand is that he is poised to make a move. And these smaller states, he doesn't believe that NATO will jump in and help. They'll supply some stuff maybe, but it'll be too late. He can take some of these Baltic states very quickly. And that could happen this year as this Ukraine war comes under some type of an agreement. Now, the world community will continue to put sanctions on Russia, but these sanctions really don't work. Matter of fact, when they did sanctions on Russian oil distribution, their sales have increased in Russia, because when the Americans decided not to do as much oil drilling as we were doing under the Trump years. When we cut back our production, Russia's production increased. The reason ours was so much higher, we were producing almost all of the oil we needed, and we were selling it to the European allies. When we stopped shipping it basically to the European allies and cut back on our own consumption and started buying again from the Saudi Arabians, this opened a wide open door for the Europeans had to buy their oil then from Russia. And Russia's held that over their head. And he has jacked up the prices quite considerably and has used that to help fund his war machine. So this whole thing is playing perfectly into play if you are Vladimir Putin and the Russian regime. So let's watch and see what happens. Now, a lot of people have a lot of opinions. I'm just giving you the facts militarily. I'm not going to go into the why that Putin does what he does, or why Biden does what he does, or Trump did what he did, because then here we go, and then the conspiracy theories begin. It's just a fact. Russia invaded Ukraine in the spring of 2014. They easily got Crimea to vote to be annexed, and the eastern side, Putin did not send troops, at least he didn't say he did, although we really do believe he did send in the little green men. It was Russian soldiers dressed up in rebel uniforms. But he really officially moved in 2 years ago after the Olympics, which he told basically, he went to China and told President Xi what he was going to do. Xi told him to go ahead. And we also know that China is staring at Taiwan. They believe Taiwan is theirs. They've said it repeatedly. And every time somebody tries to stand up for Taiwan, China gets very aggressive. They plan on taking Taiwan and maybe more ground, islands, more of the South Pacific Sea. So we're in a soft World War III situation, really. And if you look at this from a prophecy standpoint, we shouldn't be shocked. We've talked about this forever, that eventually the Gog and Magog conflict is going to happen, not just in Europe, but of course, the Middle East. Right now, the whole world is trying to force Israel into parting the land, literally trying to force them to do it. And they're trying to bring it before the General Assembly to vote it. And of course, Israel is saying, no, 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 no. We're not gonna do it. We're not gonna part the land. But biblically, this showdown over the parting of the land is in the book of Joel, chapter 3, where it says that God will bring the whole world down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, right there between the Mount of Olives and the eastern gate of the city and the Temple Mount, right in between there, and that he would plead with the world not to part the land, not to come against his heritage, Israel, the people. So this is an extraordinary time we are in Bible prophecy. I mean, seriously. And so I want you to look at it from the lens of prophecy. Don't look at it right now politically. Don't be choosing sides on whether or not Xi has a right to go take Taiwan or Putin has a right to go take Ukraine and the Baltic states and Poland and Romania and all that. Don't look at it from that perspective. Look at it from the prophecy perspective, that the Bible talks about there will be wars and rumors of wars, and that yes, Russia or Magog would team up with other nations like Persia or Iran and Turkey and other nations, other Arab states, and would make a run at Israel. First, you have to have Israel surrounded with a lot of other nations, building a confederacy, a coalition. That's Psalms 83. We definitely know that's in play. We have to also see the whole world coming against Israel, wanting to part the land. We see that in play, and that includes the Biden administration. Now, the Trump administration won't do that, but the Biden administration said they will do that. And so we're watching prophecy. And then, of course, you know that Gog, ultimately then, there's the attack on Israel, and it's Gog and Magog, the battle, okay? But we know they come in Ezekiel 38 to try to forcibly take Jerusalem. So keep an eye on all of this. And what this means is the timeline of the coming of Jesus Christ has really gotten short. I did not, I'll be honest with you, I did really, you got the red heifers ready to be prepared for the ashes of the red heifer. You have the Jewish people talking about building a third temple. You have the tension on the Temple Mount right now that, that there's could be that Netanyahu may prevent some of the Muslim worshipers from going to the Temple Mount during Ramadan and try to stop them from going to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. That would just, in the midst of all of this going on. So we really, and then you have the Jewish people who've been bombarded, who've been fired at by rockets from Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, who've been watching Syria and Iran and Russia patrolling along the Golan Heights and building up bases and bringing in more weaponry. Iran constantly talking about the annihilation and the destruction of Jerusalem, and as part of an apocalyptic theology of eschatology. And so when you see all this going on, you need to look up. You need to lift up your head, because your redemption, our redemption, is drawing nigh. I'll be back with more current world events and how they relate to biblical prophecy. Are you serious? I am very serious. In this video right here, I'm extremely serious that you're about to see the next phase, the conceding of Ukraine, of eastern Ukraine to Russia, and then Russia pivoting at some point here and making a move at the Baltic states as his next conquering. And that means that puts Poland and Romania, Hungary and Slovakia all on notice. And at the same time, it should put Taiwan on notice that China's about ready to make their move. And at the same time, Israel's already on notice as they're being surrounded and they're getting very little support left. And their only ally, America, is teetering, literally waffling on whether they will continue to stand with Israel or side with the United Nations. Give your life to Jesus Christ is what I'm trying to say. We're running out of time.